Denise Treizman, thank you so much for meeting with us today and joining us for On Camera in your studio. It's beautiful to see all your work here displayed. And we just wanted to hang out and talk to you. Having met recently, I learned a lot about you, and I wanted to share that with the audience.
Sure, thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure. And well, one thing I wanted to start with is, the beginning of everything. I know that you're originally from Chile, and you relocated here to the United States. Can you talk about your sort of art beginnings back home and how that sort of transition to the U.S. worked?
Yeah, so I was not raised in a family of artists. I'm actually like the only artist in my family, and I pursued a degree first in business and economy in Chile and finished it for 5 years. And then after that, I was always artistically inclined, but I think we've talked about this in the past, but like I didn't really know that I could be an artist, I think, because I was not the naturally gifted kid that was always drawing in school or that could make the perfect portrait or copy something. So when you're like 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, you think that's what being an artist is. I was always taking lessons and supported, like my family pushed me like into whatever crafty thing I wanted to do as a kid, but I wasn't really thinking I wanted or could be an artist. But then, so I completed my degree, and I really could not see myself like entering that world or the family business. Like I could have easily pursued that, but then I kind of wanted to be an artist, started taking more classes, continuing education in Chile and in different parts of the world, and like traveled and was trying to really find myself. But at the time I was a painter, or I thought I was a painter, basically abstract color, cool stuff, but I didn't know what it meant. And anyways, at some point I really felt like I needed to have a degree just so that I could really feel like, okay, now I'm an artist. So I tried. Since I already had a degree, I tried to go straight into an MFA. And with my painting portfolio at the time, and it didn't really work out, but eventually I started a BFA at the San Francisco Art Institute, because they were like, listen, we like your work, but you're not there yet, and you can take something, like start a BFA and you'll get credit and it won't take 4 years. And I was kind of like already in my late 20s or early 30s even, and I was like, but I said, okay, I really wanted to go. I just did it. But before that, I had a summer in New York where I did a residency at SVA, like a summer residency, and that completely shifted my whole view of. I had been to New York prior to that as a tourist, but this was like the first time as an adult thinking more as an artist.
Immersed in the scene.
Yeah. And so that's when I started like developing this language of found objects and reacting to things I found or saw on the sidewalks. And I guess coming from South America, it was very strange to me to see the way people would just put things on the street and things that seemed like, or not even things, because a lot of times people was like, yeah, that couch looks useful, but it could have bed bugs or whatever, right? But the amount of garbage, like the piles of black trash bags and the way they were piled and things leaning, objects leaning, and I don't know, it just really like shocked me, it's not the right word, but like
spoke to you, like in
spoke to me, I guess. And I was like, what's this? And I started responding to that on the street. Basically I would do a lot of like short term interventions, maybe with paint, but not graffiti at all. It was more like a gesture. It could be done with tape. It could have to do with something I switched and placed differently.
And that was like performative?
I was not really interested. So this happened that summer. I didn't know what I was doing, but I cut off the story about, let's go back to that, but I cut out the part about San Francisco. So after a semester there, I said, okay, let me take classes that I never had, like sculpture, welding, basic stuff that people take on an undergrad degree. And then the professor that there was the chair of the sculpture department was like, why are you in the BFA and not in the MFA?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, well, I tried, but no one accepted me. And he said, well, you didn't apply to sculpture. I'm like, I don't think I'm a sculptor. He's like, yes, you are. And that came from the things that I had done on the street in New York. Because that was after that, he saw those pictures of those street interventions, and he's like, this is sculpture. I was like, okay. So he said, apply now, apply again. He helped me. He was very generous. The guy gave me letters. And then I switched internally at SFAI and started a second semester already at an MFA. But I was still obsessed with New York.
Yeah.
San Francisco was just a difficult city for me. It didn't feel like it had that energy of New York and working with found objects. It just was like, oh my God, I have to go up this hill, down the hill. It wasn't speaking to
a lot of
me.
schlepping around.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of energy out of it.
Yeah, but also it wasn't the same thing. It was just, maybe it's changed now, but at the time it was like a perfectly nice and clean city versus that other thing, the noise. And I was obsessed with New York and decided to reapply to grad school. This professor knew about it and helped me. And, I ended up getting accepted a year later to like 3 programs that had rejected me a year before. So, but my work had really, really made a big shift in that year.
Stopped painting entirely.
Well, somebody could debate that the work I do is painting, actually, because it's like...
Not traditional painting.
No, not painting with a brush necessarily, but I do work a lot on paper. I don't know if you've seen any of my drawings, but I work still a lot on paper. And, even when I'm making an installation, I think I'm painting with objects in a way, because color is just such an important thing in my work that I've been called a painterly sculptor before, and I like that. But I'm not a painter.
Yeah, not traditionally. But color and light that you incorporate kind of have those qualities of paint.
Yeah.
But back to San Francisco, you had a very impactful experience with one of your professors there. You mentioned once.
That was in New York.
That was in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So then eventually I applied with the help of this professor, got in, moved, started an MFA at the School of Visual Arts, and it was very different from San Francisco. It was like you had less access to materials, facilities, and things like that, but you were in New York. My studio was in Chelsea. Like all professors were working art. Most professors were like amazing people you've seen on books or Chelsea galleries, and they would just show up in your studio.
So producing work right there alongside you and stuff.
No, they had their personal studios, but it was like like literally sitting like you and I are now. You would have one-on-one conversations, or they would take you to their studios to see. It was much more like an introduction to like real life of an artist, if you could, like, you know what I mean. It felt less like school in that sense.
More
like learning techniques.
Class.
Yeah. But I had a professor there that was Marilyn Minter, and she's an amazing artist. I'm sure you know her, but her work and my work are very different, but we do share this attraction to the desirable, the shiny, the excess in a way. And she was very, very important as an influence to me, because I really at the beginning did not know much what I was doing with these objects. And as I transitioned from making this like spontaneous and short-term interventions, because they would disappear, I would just document them. At the time, again, I had all these conversations. What is this about performance, photography, because you can print these things. And I was not really interested so much in any of those things, but more on developing a language. So slowly, I didn't know it, but I think now, looking backwards, that's what it was. At the time, I didn't know. I'm like, okay, maybe I should do photography. You're starting, you hear all these voices, classmates, peers, professors, only do this, push this, blah, blah. So it's an exciting but tough time, especially for someone coming.
Trying to discover.
Yeah. So Marilyn was a very, very important influence to me, as she like kind of allowed me to see that messing around with objects was a special talent, that for some people it seems like, what are you doing? You're just moving, you're combining a found pink ball with a piece of wood and making a line with a spray paint mark on it, and it's like precarious. I'm like, my son could do that thing that's been applied in throughout art history to even abstract painting. So in my case, it could seem like a thing that's like easy to do.
But your intuition and your intention is very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you question a lot that, like, what is my talent? And I guess it could be considered that, the intuition and the freedom to create, I think is one of my big assets. And not every artist, because maybe their practice doesn't allow it, they have to work in a more methodic way. I just really like to play and enjoy what I'm doing and follow intuition, and I don't know. But what was the story I told you about Marilyn?
You were talking about Marilyn, how she would kind of, speak to the students in the class and say, hey, can you do this? Can you duplicate this or something?
Oh yeah, I remember. So one time we had a crit in my studio, and I had it was not even an installation, like assemblages on the floor, something on the wall, and some, like I said, could be a ball, a piece of wood, and a spray paint mark, just to give like a simplistic example, not too far from reality maybe. So some people, and it's also the goal of grad school, and it's good to have people that put you in a critical situation, like what is this about and how is this So there was one guy that was particularly the opposite to me in terms of art, and he was very harsh in general with everyone, but he kind of was not understanding my practice, I guess. And so one day we're in this crit, 10 people, small groups, and maybe 10 or 8 students, Marilyn, and he was kind of saying something like, I don't understand it or something, and then Marilyn goes like, okay, well, let's see. How about I give you 3 minutes and you move something around it? Because he was like, that's just like a ball placed on a corner or something.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'll give you 2 minutes and move something, or where would that ball go that's better than where she placed it, or something like that. And he started moving it and she's like, no, that doesn't work. And then I don't know, suspend it somewhere. No. And so it was kind of funny, and she did that a lot with other people in different aspects of, but it was kind of a way of saying there's, I guess she called it having an eye, but it's and every artist has an eye. We're all artists, but having, I guess, that specific kind of eye to be able to move around things in a room and make them look good. I'm exaggerating.
Sure, no, I get it. Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah. Sounds like a really good experience to have her kind of in your corner when you were trying to find your identity and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I was very lucky. I had great people there.
Mm-hmm. And when did you end up coming down here to South Florida? You spent a lot of time in New York.
Yeah, so I graduated and I stayed for almost 7 years after graduating. So I was in New York for about 9 years, and I started pursuing residencies and local opportunities, and I did a lot of summer residencies in the East Coast and the Midwest, and I understood that it was important to get connected. Even being in New York, it was a great thing to do, to get out of it, because as exciting as it is, you still feel okay, and it'll be good to leave and come back. That I think that's good always, to get a perspective of what you're doing. And what happened? Yeah, I got a studio at the Elizabeth Foundation. So I did a lot of residencies in Brooklyn, and at the time I liked this I was into this idea of like being slightly nomadic. So I would take a studio or do a residency that lasted 3 months or 2 months, or sublet a studio in a different neighborhood for a month and things like that, even though it was annoying to move it. But I was into this idea of really responding and working with what I could find. And in New York, neighborhoods are so diverse that even having a studio in Long Island City versus, Midtown Manhattan or whatever, is a complete shift.
Yeah, it's like being on tour, like a band going on tour.
Yeah, exactly. So I did that for a while until I actually got accepted at the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts, which was a great residency, a subsidized studio in the middle of like Times Square. And that's like right where my studio was, very near like the fashion district, and I think that at the time I also didn't understand it, but that also did influence me a lot because
more fiber work and stuff you started.
Yeah, before that I wasn't really like so much into like fluffy things, I guess if you could call it, or like I don't know. I mean, and I think, just walking and seeing all these things, and it wasn't like I was purchasing fabrics or anything like that, but like there were sometimes leftovers that, ropes and tassels and pieces of things and like color swatches and things like that. And I slowly and I wasn't necessarily weaving at the time, but I was already starting to use those kind of materials that I guess have not appeared in my work before.
That's really neat. Yeah. I like how you talk about, taking advantage of your surroundings and your environment to kind of build on your work and add new elements. It's really neat. And so when you came to Florida, to Miami, how soon after you arrived here did you kind of immerse yourself into the scene that you're in, being a member of the Laundromat, and you seem to have made a lot of really good connections here quickly in Miami.
Yeah, so I moved to Miami, long story, but let's shorten it to the word COVID time. And I ended up here May 2021 or something. I had a 6-month-old baby and a 2-year-old daughter at the time, and I really wanted to get back into having a studio. I was always producing work and stuff, but I mean, even though I bought a loom, I was making I needed to have a studio. So I was kind of researching, and Miami has some awesome things, but in terms of that, it's pretty limiting, and there's a clear demand for more spaces like this one. So I was very lucky. I loved the studio spaces here. I met Ronald, the director of Laundromat, and talked to him, and I was on a wait list, and after a couple of months, the space freed up, and he invited me to become a member. So it's been great. I've been here since then.
That's really cool. And always in the same
in the same studio. And I've met great people here. It's very important to me to be part of a community. I've never had I know here in Florida, there's possibilities of having your garage become a studio, like at school, or rent a warehouse maybe, and things like that. But I really do value having people around me.
You feed off others' energy.
Yeah, you do. Or you find friends. You feel like you're part of something, not just, being an artist can be like lonely, isolating, and competitive. It's a very weird profession. What can I tell you? You kind of like meet the other people. You're happy for other people's successes, but then you're also frustrated about not being the it's inevitable. We're humans, and whomever tells you that they're not, it's in my opinion a lie. Like, you could get very happy when your friend got something, and genuinely, but there's always going to be like a little stab of like, oh, I also applied to that, and then the next time you're the one who got it, and your friend feels that.
I'm sure.
And I think having a community of people that you can trust and rely on, like, I don't know, now I'm working on a special project. I can't actually make it myself because I'm not that good at building. There's a great artist here who's like going to help me, assist me with that project. And he's a great artist himself, but we use different hats for like
and help each other. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And so you've had a lot of great opportunities. One was your solo show here, the one about the electric fence. Can you talk about that and the concept and how you kind of converted this space into like a site-specific immersive experience?
Yeah, so as residents, we get the opportunity to have a show here at the gallery space once in our lifetime. So my time came, and I was like, okay, I really wanted to transform the space as I usually do, but it's also a space that has a lot of transit, and it's not huge. So it was a little bit of a challenge to make something immersive. But I always had that idea, like, it's right next to my studio. I don't want to just pull out a couple of pieces and hang them outside instead of inside. I wanted to create some sort of immersive installation. And I worked with Mahara Martinez, and I invited her to help me out with this curatorial project, and she was in. And she had seen me working with this wire mesh in smaller scale, and I was really getting into that material and weaving it with light, and she was like, I really think you should make something big with this. So that was great, because ever since that project, I've started working a lot with that. And the show was Electric Fence, Do Not Climb, Do Not Touch. I always get them mixed up, but yeah. And it was a funny title, because there was this huge thing that, made out of wire mesh.
Looking like a chain link fence.
Yeah, it looked like something you want to jump on, like a cloud or something, and very magical with these lights and pom-poms in between it, and an iridescent vinyl on the floor, so very tempting. But on the other hand, if you think of the material, it could have different connotations. Again, would depend on what you make of it as a viewer. If you have a farm, you'll see that material different than if you're thinking about a barrier or crossing. Like it's really open-ended, like everything in my work. But I was interested in exploring this idea of a barrier that was like slightly impermeable, but still permeable.
Through dangerous but attractive.
Yeah, and not really dangerous. So the title was just like a prank, kind of. But yeah,
that's really
that led me into really cool projects and ideas, because actually afterwards, when I had the show at the consortium, the show that I made there came from that stemmed from that, because then I thought, I want to make this much more like a mat, because that one was more like floating on the floor, and then I had this amazing space at FAU Galleries, and I wanted it to be more like a mountain-like thing, and then there were more objects trapped in it, so it became a different thing. And then the alleys that I told you I want, it's also with that material.
Okay.
So kind of the same concept, but now I'm hoping that the community will take part of the installation in it, because it's that barrier that's meant to be dismantled by stomping on it. So then I'm going to create something with the flattened pieces. So a lot of times in my work, like, it's not like I work with only one material, but I do get excited about a new specific thing, and kind of want to, like, it just gives me a new idea and a new idea, and I pursue it.
Very cool. Congratulations on the Ellie. That's really sweet. And so this concept that you have, you're going to have sort of the public interacting with the work, and then sort of reconstructing it after they've kind of gotten involved with it. Do you have a way figured out how you're going to get the public involved? Are you going to have like a sign up or?
So I don't, because I still don't have the space to host it. So I'm kind of gauging.
It's going to depend on that.
It is, because it's an open-ended proposal in the sense that the participation of the public could go from like a specific staged performance, and people can only participate during that day. Open calls for participation, or it could go from an organic engagement throughout the duration of the show, and obviously I would have to work with the space that wants to host this project in terms of like if there's any waivers or things like that. I mean, it's not dangerous, but I guess in the U.S. you have to be
you have to protect yourself.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe there could be some sort of outfit or gloves or I don't know. I mean, it's like a work in progress because I'm also flexible. Like in my work, I don't have to actually do specifically XYZ.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to.
Have you ever done something like this before, where you've had like public involvement in your work?
No, actually.
Pretty ambitious.
Yeah, I haven't had. I'm thinking. Yes, actually, I had it before, but it was easier. I did one time a project with a lot of like. I was living in New York at the time, but I did it in Miami at the historic post office for Basel. It was like and they invited me for that project, and it was like this big installation with tape, clear tape, and metallic shred, and it was kind of a pool of that, and people. It was constructed and left like that. There were no instructions, nothing. But during the actual opening of the event, it lasted 4 days or something. People went into like. It would just like step into this world of metallic shred paper, and you figured it out kind of because there was like tape all over, so people would like start attaching it to it, so it became like a whole silverish wall.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was kind of like, whatever's gonna happen here. Whatever.
Did you expect that?
I wasn't even there because I did the installation and I went back to New York and then had someone document it, and I'll show you later. It turned out really cool. But I was like, it looks cool as it is, and if people get it and they interact. Yeah. So there were people like throwing paper, very Miami.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you come up with these, site-specific installations that kind of convert the space, how do you, I guess, plan for it? You do like renderings. What's your process for, planning this stuff out, and for getting these opportunities and grants, whatever may be the case.
So some of them have been like invited or nominated or applied and won. I'm always pursuing things locally and hopefully not only locally in terms of grants and things like that. I think that's my next goal, to like start hitting prizes that are not only for Florida-based people, but I guess it depends a lot. Every project is so different. Like first of all, it depends if it's a solo opportunity, if it's a group opportunity. There's been group shows where the show is about installation, like the one we had with Dani at Piera Chubari, Women at Large. It was 9 people, and even though I make site-specific immersive installation, I had a very self-contained piece there. Like I decided I didn't want to make an installation there because it was just going to be 9 people interacting in a room, and I didn't know how that was going to end up turning out, so I prefer to like go with that, you know. And it's not the first, like there's been shows, by the way, in New York where I showed a painting, and like, I kind of like to also do that. It's almost like a surprise, surprising the viewer, like, oh wow, so now that's what you went with, So when it's a group show, it depends a lot on the curator and the space. And if it's a group show and you have a whole room, then yes, it's an installation maybe.
Yeah, the theme could be something you're working towards.
But if it's a solo project, then again, it depends on what it is. I feel like I've shifted a lot from my initial beginnings where I told you about this, like when I lived in New York, and people are very much into site-specific, and they're like, I want, even for a group show, I want you to make a site-specific thing here, and you're like, I would go with bags of materials, not knowing what I was gonna make, just like some things that I had, like on the subway, or rented a car, show up there with, and like spent 2-3 days making something. So that was like the beginnings of how I would approach a site-specific installation. I would say now, almost 15 years later, I I'm less inclined to do that, although I've done it. I did it a little bit at the Coral Springs Museum. Like some of these things I really knew I have these objects and
figure
it out in the space. But for other shows, like the Consortium or the show in Dothan, Alabama, at the Wiregrass Museum, I had more of a plan. So it's a very broad question because it really varies. But it does give me, we also talked about this, it does give me a little bit of mental health to like have a plan. But I know that plan is not going to be that. Like, and whoever works with me knows that that's not going to end up being that. Like, or because it's just, or maybe like you've got certain parameters. Like, okay, for the show in Alabama, I knew that there was going to be an installation with tires. They actually sourced out the tires for me from a local store. So I knew that. I didn't know exactly how it was going to look or where it was going to go. Like, it's very variable.
Yeah, that's really neat. Kind of go with the flow and make it work. Does that give you anxiety or?
Yes, I mean, of course, having a plan reduces anxiety. But even when I had no plan, I think the anxiety is like just to get started and like understand. And like at the beginning, you're there and you're like, okay, white wall, white room, white corner, white whatever, and like bags of things. Like, how do I approach this? And like once you start playing and figuring it out, and it starts like speaking to you in a way. And then after day one, I'm already like, okay, this is going to look good, or this is going to work out. And then I could play endlessly. And that's one of the other things about my work. Like, when does it start and when does it end? And that is also, I guess, a challenge and an opportunity, because every time I create something, I could keep going forever. Or if I had more room, it could be 10 times larger. Like the tire piece I made in Alabama had 30 tires. And I was like, oh man, I wish I had 200 and, I made it in the other room. So, and it doesn't mean that I'm not satisfied with that 30 tire piece, but it doesn't mean that in 10 years I'm not hoping, or in 5 or in 2, that I'm going to replicate something similar with 5 times more tires.
You see the opportunity for.
And it's also, it goes both ways. I also see how some of my work
can be edited back.
Can be edited. I don't know. It's almost like subtracting an element from something, or getting a smaller version of something. I mean, I think that's something I do a lot. Like, I work in huge. I can make a work that's compelling in a huge room, but then I can also give you a 10 by 8 balloon weaving that I enjoy making as much as the other things. So I like playing with scale. I like playing with the idea that the work can contract and expand depending on the space.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I think I told you that was my first experience with your work, was seeing your balloon weavings, the club gallery. And that was so neat when we saw that. And that must have been a lot of fun. That's something that, like you said, came about from some balloons you had just lying around.
Yeah, so that was a leftover from my daughter, and I was going to throw them out. And then I'm like, wait, why am I throwing? That's also something interesting. In the past, when I lived in New York, I would only work with things I found myself, and I had to find them myself. Yeah. So if someone came with, like, if somebody's like, hey, you want this? I'd be like, no. It wasn't like a spontaneous encounter or something. Like, and with time, I kind of, and it wasn't like a self-imposed parameter. It just didn't feel or people would just, she works with objects, and it still happens. Like, you want this plastic? I'm like, no. Even though it could seem like I can take anything, I'm very specific about the kind of things that I want.
Sure.
Or I can immediately tell you no, or this I could use at some point, So at my beginnings, I would not take something from someone else, and I would not even take something that was mine and I was getting rid of. So, like, say I had this shiny jacket that didn't fit me or whatever. Yeah. Like, now I would keep it and cut it, and it would become something. 10 years ago,
Yeah,
that would go to Goodwill because I was like, nah, you know, because it was mine. It's very spread. I think I've moved so much that I've understood. It's almost like my own things have become found objects. Like sometimes I open a box or like this weaving I made 10 years ago, and it was like it's at some point shown like a little thing on a wall. I'm like, yeah, now this could go into this bigger thing, and I stitch it into that. So I think at this point, it's almost like I see my own things as having the potential to be treated or evolve like a found object. Yeah.
That's really cool. Really cool.
But I didn't answer the balloon weavings. Yeah, so my daughter's balloon weavings, which 10 years ago I would have like just tossed away. I was like, oh wait, why am I throwing this out? I mean, maybe I'll bring them to the studio. And then a couple of weeks later, I thought of weaving with them, and it was kind of like an aha moment. Like, wow, okay, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing, and then there was this like piece of textile, I guess, elastic, rubbery, that came out of it. So,
I think that was a big hit.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah. And again, I'm not a person that works in one series. It's very hard for me to commit to like, okay, now I want to only weave with balloons.
Sure.
And it's not like, okay, I used to weave with balloons in 2019. You know what I mean? I could make another, like it's still part of my, it's like a magician pulling like tricks out of a bag in a way.
A repertoire.
Like, it's like, okay, I'll do this, you know, I'll do that. And it's not like something I'm not interested in anymore, or it's passe. I'm not interested in pool noodles anymore. My first installation, like it sticks in my head.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard for me to get rid of my own objects. Like when I take down an installation, I tend to keep these things, not because I couldn't even, because now I also buy things. It's not only things I find, but I feel like if I have it there, I know it's there, or I see it even on the corner of my eye somewhere in the studio. So when I'm making something, I think of that material. So it's interesting.
Could be useful.
Yeah. But it's not about being useful, because it could be useful, buy more. You know, it's not useful to spend like $100 on storage for pool noodles that cost $100. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But if I don't have them there, I'm not going to make something with them again. Yeah. Unless I have this project, I think of it, I make a proposal, and I'm like, okay, I buy 200 pool noodles. But I work very much in that way. You know what I didn't tell you that's interesting? In New York in 2015, I had a show where it was called Hasta la Vista Maybe. So I had a storage unit in New York, and I had a show at Wave Hill in the Bronx, and it was a very nice room in the middle of nature, kind of. It's called the Sunroom Project Space because it's all like windows and stuff. And I had to make an installation there, and my proposal, which I won by an open call at the time, was like to create this immersive installation with found objects from my storage unit. You know, from the streets of New York, taxi bumpers, hot dog cart umbrellas, a lot of things like that. And it was in contrast with this like nature, you know, so it's like a capsule of like urban junk in the middle of this beautiful botanical garden or something. And the proposal incorporated this idea that so I brought the whole storage unit on a U-Haul, made the installation, whatever I didn't use, I tossed. So it was kind of a way to like get rid of the cleanse of my, but not, you know, I really think it's an idea that persists in my head because I would like to replicate the model. Like every XYZ 10 years I do that or something. Yeah. So that was really cool. So whatever made it to the show went back to the storage unit in the U-Haul. Whatever I didn't use, I was kind of like hasta la vista.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Wow. You got a really great sort of body of work, you know, all over the United States, Chicago, Alabama, New Jersey, New York. I I can't wait to see where you go next with it. Obviously, here in Miami, you've got some great projects coming up that we'll talk about when they're released. But they're still in the works, so we'll keep those under wraps for now. But can't wait to see you do your thing this winter for Art Week. I know you got something very exciting coming up, so we're going to look out for that and keep people posted on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Denise. It's such a great honor to sit here and talk with you.
No, I really appreciate you coming and connecting with me. I really think Miami needs more of alternative magazine people and things like that. So anytime. Thank you.